Welcome in and good day. Hello, everyone. There we go. This is the BNN Midseason Power Rankings Review, Episode 2, Magic GOO. I think that rhymed at some point.
Two GOO, it works. I think it works.
Yeah.
Wow. Fair enough. Today, you will recognize a couple faces here, of course. Luckey and Ileana rejoining us here. Luckey, of course, is our regular host, along with myself as the anchor. Ileana with Sibber, go ahead and reintroduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, I'm Ileana. I do things. I do analysis things at the Society for Internet Blaseball Research, and put hot takes into a power ranking spreadsheet periodically. And they keep bringing me onto this program to talk about them.
Well, the numbers that you place on the sheet are really interesting. and I don't think, as someone from Sibber, let's say, maybe someone who founded Sibber, perhaps even?
Co-founder, roughly.
Sure. I mean, you certainly appreciate interesting numbers, right?
Sure, yeah.
There we go. Drewo is our new guest for this week. Drewo, not only are you a writer for BNN, a contributor, you did your own power rankings as well this week, and you are one of the brand new, freshly loamed Worms captains.
Yeah, we're moving to Worm Ambassador this weekend, but for now it's Worm Captain.
I like Worm Ambassador. That's pretty good. That's good.
We've got a Worm Ambassadors and a set of Wormity, which is our board committee of worms. So
how many
we'll
puns?
fit in as many places as possible, really. I think.
How many puns are you gonna make?
Well, so far everything is a pun. It's it's loamy instead of lovely. It's G'day instead of G'day. It's as much as we can really get along with. We've got one of the kind of like lore sheets has got a list of all of the current like sayings and chants and puns on it. And right now the most popular is any time there is a chant, no matter what it is, has to be like started with kind of like eat dirt. It's positive, it's negative, it gets across all the feelings, really.
That's good. Well, I'm glad you all are enjoying digging it up, no matter where you go. Yeah. And then Luckey Haskins, Man About Town. Fresh new camera, fresh new facial hair. Everything's feeling just sharp. How you doing, Luckey?
I'm doing good. This season has been delightful and fun. The playing around with the ridiculous amount of flooding. The slushies, the fact that I maxed out the slushies early because I just thought that was amusing, paying off big time. So,
oh yeah.
And of course, now that's going into renovations. So,
yeah. So we have so much to talk about this week from the world of Blaseball across the board, whether it's those that are doing well, those that are doing poorly. Topics tonight are going to include, and I'm just going to run down the list here, the Crabs, Firefighters, Mills, the Spies, Lovers and Moist Talkers, the Lift, the Worms, and of course the namesake, which I am so excited for, the title, Magic GOO, the Yellowstone Magic, who may be, I dare say, coming for us.
Well, depends if you define us as BNN. I figure a lot of us could maybe get an out and they'll just come for Cal and Cat.
I mean, I have an out. I have an out in that, I was the one person like, hey, Magic might do well this season.
Might.
Halfway so far.
I mean, there's still time.
There's still so much season left to go. It's only Wednesday. There is at least a full day of Blaseball left to happen. So, Luckey, where would you like to start on our list of many things to discuss tonight?
I was thinking of saving it for the end, but I feel like we've kind of already broached the topic of the Magic. So I feel like maybe we should start with Magic GOO.
Okay.
Everyone who tuned in for Magic GOO. Are you ready for this, Dan?
Yeah. Okay. So the Magic have been running a little bit of a PR thing, and I tweeted this out as the image for tonight's broadcast. The Yellowstone Magic have tweeted this image out. It is the It is the Doom Guy image that they were using for so long for where is King Weatherman, except where is BNN?
Yeah.
Now, fun fact, most of the quotes that they put up there, like, BNN, are actually quotes that I wrote. Even though I ranked them as number 2, I still wrote the article for the Magic. And, yeah, maybe they weren't so happy about some of those, which is okay. But the Magic are doing unbelievably well.
Yeah.
Before I get my thoughts, Lucky, and I want all of you to please chime in on this. Go ahead.
So I think a couple of us here had some inkling that they might be better than they were previous seasons. I think I had them ranked just under the bottom, just on the top of the bottom half.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they might compete. It's the mild low, very competitive. And I didn't think that they would be this competitive, though. Ileana, so where did you have them slotted?
I had them at 14, which I think was...
That's where I had them too, yeah.
Yeah, slightly higher than the average, but yeah, I think the average was 17. Or they ended up 17th once you math it all out.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the interesting things about that center third or center half, I guess, of the power rankings board is a lot of people don't really know where to place folks, because it really depends a lot on who you're going to end up playing in the regular season. And we went into this, I think a lot of people went into this thinking the mild league was going to be significantly more competitive. Crabs just got a championship. Some other stuff happened, presumably. But that was really the main thing, right? Like people were I think, indexing a lot on Crab's good. And thinking Crab's good, Friday's good. Breathmint's got Jessica Telephone back. Canada Moist Talkers got High Pressure. All of these different things that happened over the election that led people to indicate that the mild league was going to be significantly more competitive than it honestly is right now. I think the Magic kind of lucked out both with those teams ending up significantly less competitive than everyone expected, and also the particular schedule draw they got. And those two things together are really pushing Magic into really pushing Yellowstone into an area where they actually can trash talk BNN personally, and get away with it.
Yeah,
it's weird. I'm looking through the Magic schedule, and I know we're talking a lot about mild low is competitive, and it absolutely is. When you look at last season, Fridays, the Crabs, the Breathmints getting into the wild card and performing there as well. It looks really competitive, but Magic are winning every game against the top teams. They're losing their games against the weaker teams. They're losing their games against the Garages and the Mills. They've won every game against the Moist Talkers, as far as I can see. I'm not even sure the schedule's helping them. I think they could be doing better if they had some of those harder games. I think that to lose games against the Garages this season feels a little bit,
It is,
but...
And there is. We'll cover this. We talk about schedule. There is one team the Magic are not playing this season. The Lovers.
Well, they could in the semis.
In the postseason.
In the postseason, we could see that.
In the regular season, they're not gonna out of those 99 games, they're not gonna see San Francisco.
That's really unfortunate, because I think that would be a really fun matchup to see.
Oh, it would be.
Yeah. It would be an incredible series.
So
Dan,
I agree with Draywell there that the schedule, I'm not sure worked in their favor. They've faced the Pies and the Breathmints quite often, and the Pies especially are actually also doing really well this season.
Yeah, they're not easy games.
No, they're not.
They're hard series.
I will take just this moment to be like, I rank them number 2. I rank the Magic at number 2. I thought the Magic was going to do pretty darn well this season, and I actually have a little bit to back it up. So I'm just going to run through this real quick. All this information I also had in my article in the Power Rankings for Season 14 article on Blaseball.news. You can look it up anytime you'd like. My points were that while Season 13 was definitely a struggle with a little bit of disorientation going on. I know, I'm sorry, Yellowstone, I did use the word disorientation, and I'll stick with that for Season 13. Season 14 was looking really good for me for 4 specific reasons. One, King Weatherman, who I hold near and dear to my heart, had a huge Season 14 party time, which pushed his unthwackability into the dangerous range. It's in the 1.1 or 1.2 range now, which automatically is going to start shutting down some of the lower star batters. And that felt really good. It also improved his not coldness, but
one of those stats we probably have no idea what it means.
Suppression. Suppression.
No, my brain blanked. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It was a good, really good Game 99, end of Season 13 party time. Incredibly good one. And then the infusion for Chorby Short. Now, Chorby Short had already had a small buff, I believe, at the end of Season 12 or beginning of Season 13.
I think Chorby Short got infused both elections.
Both elections.
Rerolled, I think.
Okay, so that was
rerolled runs in the next, yeah.
But it was Chorby got rerolled twice at the end of Season 12 because Chorby still got rerolled and then was still bad enough to need another reroll.
I love that mechanic
so much. Excellent. So,
as a Firefighters fan, I'm very used to that happening.
So Chorby Short got a really big infusion. I think it was close to that 20% mark, maybe towards the 15, but definitely in the upper ranges. Chorby Short, if we go ahead and look her up on the Magic roster, Chorby has 5.5 stars in base running now. Chorby Short steals and runs like a champion. And with 3.5 stars in batting, suddenly Chorby doesn't want those foul balls. Chorby is swinging on them.
It's a little sad that we'll never see a game like we did. I mean, I'm heartbroken for that. But Chorby Short is really, really going right now.
Yeah. And for some reason, she's hitting clutch homers. Clutch homers have been what's really made Chorby shine so far. It also closes up an important gap in the lineup for the Magic between Bonk Jokes and the latter third. Tiana Wheeler, 4 stars. Elizabeth Elliott, 3.5 stars. Oscar, 4 stars. Welcome back, by the way, Oscar. So that was a huge improvement that I was looking forward to. The other changes that happened, the replacements for Sutton and Wyatt Glover, one of which actually was one of the players I just mentioned, Tiana Wheeler, the replacement for Sutton Pickelstein. Honestly, an amazing player that's really produced already this season in her first full season. So going into this, I was like, Magic definitely had potential. I will say this, though. I definitely leaned into hubris, though, for that call. And I will be perfectly honest. I fully expected to not necessarily see them, hit number 2. I was very confident, though, and I think we can talk about this in particular. I think the Magic are absolutely going to see the postseason. The Magic are absolutely going to see the postseason.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
I think it's an open question of like, right now we're looking at what does the postseason picture look like. I think you're looking at either a Lovers Magic or a Canada Magic Mild League Championship Series. I really do think like that. Those are basically the only 2 options right now. Of course, everything can change in the next 40 some games, as it often does. But I think when you're looking at, I think it's 2 of those 3 teams, San Francisco, Canada, and Yellowstone, to make it to MLCS.
Sure. Lucky?
Yeah, and I think that's actually a good spot to kind of broaden our topic to the leaders in the Mild League itself, including the Lovers and the Moist Talkers.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's like a lot of us expected the Lovers to jump.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point is, I feel like I almost desperately need or want to see the Lovers face the Magic. Since since the schedule has deprived us of that, I want it so bad.
It needs to happen.
I mean, you've got Charm versus Oh No. Oh. And yeah, you've got some good rotations. And not only that, but by the time we get there, we're going to have whatever renovations happen.
Yep.
And things like, obtuseness, which would lower hit percentage but raise foul ball percentage. Hey, Chorby. Like, I don't know if that's even on the table. It might not be.
That might be Kurt Kruller at this point for the Magic.
Right, and that's the thing is I feel like, one of those where that's such a chaotic introduction that's going to happen on day 73 that it's going to be like, okay, what's this mean for the playoffs? If does home field advantage mean a thing if teams have been clever on how they built their ballparks?
That's a good point. And I would love to know more about how our ballpark renovations going to be changing things. Oh, we're getting some static coming in. Uh-oh. Ileana, that's coming from you there. Sorry. I'm very curious to see how renovations are going to be affecting things moving into the postseason here, because I don't know what most of those stats do in the first place, but if they're suddenly changing on us and we see different stuff happening, it's like, does that have to do with renovations? Does that have to do with weather? Does that have to do with randomness? Because we can't ever discount there's still dice rolls. Mm-hmm. There's still dice rolls. They're just affected dice rolls. So, Dre, where are you at with what you're looking at for the postseason, whether it's mild or wild? What teams are you starting to feel like are going to come up to the top here?
Well, I gotta say, and this is the last bad announcement I can make with my power rankings, because it's the only one I feel like I've really not done so well on. Is I had Lovers at 22, and I can tell you why, and it's because I look at their lineup and I look at their rotation, and they've got one strong hitter in their lineup and a couple of okay hitters, and one strong pitcher in the rotation, and they both came back to the Lovers, but the Lovers had a pretty rocky season last season, and I didn't think that was enough to really bring them up. And I thought we saw some real growth in other teams. The Worms, the Flowers both look pretty strong, and I think you can kind of see that coming out. And teams, but what I didn't count for is how the Garages and Mills just don't seem to have really taken off. The Lovers have really taken over Mild High, and I can't see a postseason without them, really. Sure. And I think I had the Moist Talkers right at the top of my rankings, and I still think they'll take this whole season. I think. So I think when you look at them, they're just poof all across the board.
Yeah, let's take a moment to talk about that. You had the Moist Talkers at number 1, unlike the vast majority of us. And I'll only speak for myself here, but most of us put the Talkers at number 1. You had the Moist Talkers. Yeah. Why did you do that?
So. The Moist Talkers are, I don't know. They've got 3 players that maybe even 4 if you consider Commissioner Vapor as well, that everybody I think knows of. They're really, really strong performers, and they're big names. And they're big names not just because you can look at their stats and they're great, but because they overperform them every season. York Silk plays better than York Silk probably should. The same with Polka Dot Patterson. And that's a mix of forbidden knowledge stats and a mix of, I don't know, just love that Blaseball seems to infuse them with. And last season, the Moist Talkers got so very close to just overwhelming the Mild Division, I think. And I thought with Polka Dot Patterson back on staff and everything looking pretty good for them, and with High Pressure, which has really taken off, I think. You've just got to... I mean, I was really torn, and again, maybe the only other real misplay I had is I had Moist Talkers and Fridays at first and second, because I thought one of them will take the league, and I can't decide on who, So I'm just going to put it in at first and second, even though that's unfeasible. And I think I'm glad that Moist Hawkers went first because they were, and they seem to be the strongest team in the season, I think. And the Tackers are strong. Don't get me wrong. Tackers they're doing excellently, and I think they will continue to do very well. But the Moist Hawkers just have such a good season lineup for them.
Sure.
I don't see them losing unless they get really unlucky. You know.
Now, where are you at on the mild league right now and these teams, Ileana?
I think the Talkers Talkers lucked out significantly with the way the ongoing underlying plot of Blaseball is going. I think between getting high pressure and there being significantly more flooding games. Last week we were talking about Canada and Earlbirds. I think this is roughly the same thing. They get anyone on base, which they can very easily do. When there's flooding, they're going to overperform right then and there. The entire team is going to overperform. They're going to hit better. They're going to pitch better. It's, I think they really lucked out with the way this season happened. The Lovers, it's really interesting to see how their lineup has shaken out after the tarot reading last week, where it made their lineup as inefficient as possible and then gave them a seasonal attribute to run their lineup in reverse order. So we all sort of went into that. We all sort of went into the season going, wow, that's going to go real bad for them. They happened to get Night Triumphant back in that leadoff hitting position to really. I think that was the most important thing to making the Lovers viable in this season. Pies are really good. I don't understand why, and that we'll just leave that there. We've already talked about the magic. Mm-hmm. The breath mints are confusing, confounding, as they almost always are. They have been doing incredibly well against a lot of teams. They've had a lot of series with the Crabs, who are all mostly cursed. But then every single time I'm watching a Kansas City Seattle game, like the Garages somehow win, and I don't understand why. Dallas is middling. The Mills are underperforming. The Garages suck. That's fine.
Poor Garages. We love you, Garages.
The Garages are my home team, and I will sit here and proudly say they suck right now.
Oh, yeah.
And that's okay.
Maybe once the rotation gets as big as the lineup,
we did have a point earlier this season where there were 7 active hitters and 8 active pitchers because of flooding.
Yeah,
it's finally happened in Blaseball where you have more active pitchers than you have batters. I don't think it's a strategy that works out well for Seattle in the long run, unless they can really patch up a lot of their weaker pitchers. Will they actually do that? Don't know. Don't think so. I don't understand them. Like the Mills confound me as much as the breath mints do. But they confound me every season. So
yeah,
nothing new there.
Yeah.
That's sort of my real fast list of takes on the mild league.
Well, let's actually. I want to rewind just a little bit. Philly Pies. I want to point out the Philly Pies. New pitcher on their rotation, Dacanis, along with greats such as Elvis Figueroa and a pitcher who I honestly think actually outperforms their stars, Rustling Greatness. They don't necessarily have a weak spot in their pitching. And their defense and fielding is relatively solid. They don't have amazing hitting. Beasley Day, Yusuf Puddles, Lang Richardson. Lang Richardson can get on base, but it's not
when they want to.
It's not very consistent at all. But what is consistent is the Phillies have incredible pitching. And this is actually something I was talking about with Cat Stlats earlier before the show and throughout the week. The Philly Pies and the Yellowstone Magic in particular have faced each other at least 3 times already in the first few days of this season. And almost every single time, there has been a game where King Weatherman and Elvis Figueroa will go into a pitcher's duel, and the score stays very solidly single digits. And I love to see that because it's taken a long time in a journey to get King Weatherman to the point where he is now, but he can finally compete with these legendary pitchers from his time with the Flowers to now, to where the pitching lineup for Yellowstone Magic, Logan Rodriguez and Inky Rutledge, they struggle sometimes, but if you put Curry Alicia Keys on the mound or King Weatherman on the mound for the Yellowstone, it's probably gonna be a win. They are frightening. So
to that point with when we were talking about the Pies and the Lovers, one of the things I looked at this season, because it just seemed like defense and consistency and pitching seemed to be a lot of the big things this season versus the discipline era. Is you've got both the Lovers and the Pies have average pitching stars of 4 or above. And not only that, but what I did was like, okay, how many of their pitchers actually fall within like a range of like a half star one way or the other? And most, like 3 out of 5 for the Pies, 4 out of 6 for the Lovers. So most of their rotation falls within that high level. And then both of them also have defense, pretty good or, solid defense. So we talk about consistency. We talk about defense. We talk about solid pitching stats. The Pies and the Lovers have that. And then I think it becomes a matter of like, okay, will their lineup not get them in trouble?
Yeah.
And I think the Magic have a similar thing. Their defense isn't quite as high, but they have a more consistent lineup and some just really solid pitching. So,
I mean, when you look at the Magic's team, I'm looking at it now. It really does scream consistency. It's so great along the kind of like lines of everything's 3, 4, 5 stars maybe. To the point where I was talking to my housemate, who's a Magic's fan. And he was saying that Logan Rodriguez is now their weak link. And how many teams can say that a 2.5 star player is their weak link? Like, that's, for a while now we had no star Lars. It was, for more than one season, was it 0?
Yeah. Sorry about that, by the way, in chat there. My chat was not scrolling. I didn't see anyone in chat, so sorry about that.
Oh, no. Sorry, chat.
With that being said, I think talking about pitching and good defense in particular, let's switch gears and talk a little bit about the Wild side of things. Teams in particular that I would want to touch on, obviously the Tacos and their still 2-person pitching rotation. Yeah. And then the unfortunately not quite as doing so well Boston Flowers. Unfortunately, Boston Flowers in particular, I feel like have had to struggle with missing people in general. Gloria Bugsnax not being in the lineup, and then Nick Winkler being out of it for so long definitely hurt them. However, and this comes to my question, how frightening is Nagomi McDaniel as a pitcher now?
Oh, terrifying. And I, as a Fridays fan, there was always a discussion before the Worms turned up. Always a discussion of, wouldn't Nagomi be better on the, in the rotation? Because don't get me wrong, Nagomi, excellent batter, but Flinch is hard to deal with. It's not a great modification. And like, when you have that many stars in pitching, you're thinking maybe it's worth making the swap at some point. And big on the Flowers for getting Nagomi on the mound, because outperforming, I would say, even when you look at a 6.5 star or whatever it is, I think still outperforming that, and winning. I mean, the Flowers don't have an amazing record, but when you look at the games they win, it's McDaniels, over and over again.
Yeah. Where are you on that, Lucky?
So there was an interaction I saw with the firefighters account talking that, and Nagomi just saying, you can have 2 runs as a gift. All I could hear was that the soundbite from TikTok. It's like a reward. But I mean, I feel like the firefighters at some point are going to start memeing. I think you saw last season the way that they just reacted to Caius Dogwalker, who just, between White Pothos, Caius Dogwalker just kind of owned the wild, and now Nagomi. 3 just really huge names in the wild, and the thing is I feel like the wild has, as a whole, gotten a lot, like last season, so stratified. This season we see a lot more teams kind of trending to that middle. Like I was saying before, the middle of the entire league, in terms of like a median, like, okay, 12 teams, 11 teams above, 11 teams below. The 2 median teams were the Ohio Worms and the Chicago Firefighters, who were very different teams last year. I think that speaks to a lot of what the Wild League is like.
Sure. And I'm going to lead into you, Ileana, with this thought. The Wild Low in particular organized to have all these group buffs kind of concentrated right in there. How has that affected this season statistically, in your opinion?
I think those teams are more consistent, but I still don't think that those flotation bubbles necessarily help them against the best of the Wild High. Hades is really strong again this season. I would not be surprised if I think Hades, how strong Hades was, shocked me a little bit. I had them ranked 9 on my power ranking ballot this season. They got back some of their original Tigers, and they're really doing strong. Now, some of that might be schedule, but I wouldn't be surprised if they got a fourth championship.
Really,
this season.
Really.
Yeah, I look at them. They're doing phenomenally, and I think if you put up the Tigers against the Talkers in the internet series, you're gonna have a 5-game series. I think that they perform well under pressure.
It's actually it's interesting you mentioned that. I was watching the Tiger Sacco series, and the Tacos have won those series. That's the last 2 series pretty like highly. So I'm like, I agree with you on one point, but also like I've seen the Tacos play up against the Tigers today, and I'm thinking that Tacos have got a much higher chance leading into that postseason.
I think it also depends a lot on how well the Tacos rotation wants to perform. We saw this in the WLCS last season, where who's the one that isn't? Like, they have 2 pitchers. How do I forget their names?
Sexton Rearer and Yummy Elliott.
Yeah. I think Yummy Elliott was underperforming pretty significantly in the postseason. And when you look at the Tacos roster right now, their weak spot is their pitching rotation, of which they have 2 pitchers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, honestly, I every single time I look at the Tacos and think Tacos good, they are just one severe weather event away from total tragedy and party time, which I know some of their fans would prefer. But like as it stands right now, I really like the odds of the Fireproof Tigers.
Sure.
The other thing that's really interesting about the Wild League is how many big name pitchers they have and how spread out they are across the league. We were talking about Nagomi McDaniel earlier, and Nagomi is frightening. With like Nagomi has standings. Nagomi has 10 of Boston's 29 non-losses. I guess they're actually wins. They're the same right now. That's just like Nagomi's record is 10-1 right now on the season with a 1.10 ERA. And when you're looking this like halfway through the season and seeing a 1.10 ERA, you're probably like, the thing you should be thinking is this the greatest pitcher of all time? Right? And like Daniel might set the ERA record for the league.
Well, as Cap just said there, it's another shutout from Gomi just in the game, so it's 11-1 now. So I think a little bit more proof onto that pile, really.
Another shutout.
Let me see if Blaseball Reference will refresh real fast. Oh, another shutout.
Yeah,
and that might put her under 1.
That's what Cat is saying. It's under 1 right now.
0.94.
Well, and then the thing is we're even at the point where we're not even talking about the pitcher that has the best strikeout ratio in the Wild.
Yeah,
which is Burke Gonzalez.
Uh-huh.
And like the thing is you could say, well, depending on the game, Hiroto Wilcox could also be up there. I mean, we're like, we've gone through like 4 or 5 pitchers before we've even gotten to those, and those are all pitchers.
Yeah, and Wilcox isn't even in the ERA leaderboard right now,
right?
Like that's how good the pitching is among these like really big names in the Wild League.
Yeah, I mean, and like Dunlop Figueroa is also a great pitcher. It's like you just keep going down. And you're like, well, what about this one? What about this one? What about this one? And you're like, okay, which one's terrifying?
They're all terrifying. They're all scary to go up against. Like, you look at the lineup for the next games while you're trying to do your betting, and it's like, okay, so we might score runs. We might. Oh, well,
you may score 1 run. There's a chance.
That's what you have to think about when you're facing a pitcher like McDaniel and any of these absolute beasts.
What game is it that happened?
You've got McDaniel. You've got. Go ahead.
It was a game this morning. Well, morning for me. I suppose like very late last night for you guys. That was 59 minutes. Was it? There was. What was that? Who was the? I remember watching it, but I didn't remember the teams that were playing.
I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure Burke Gonzalez was one of the pitchers, though.
It would not surprise me. Like it was. I think it might
have been a Wings Jazz Hands game. I think it might have been Gonzalez and Pothos.
But that was. I mean, no matter who we're talking about, I think that's like we were saying a little bit earlier. Like this is a pitchers and defense. Like. I meant meta, I guess. That is what it feels like. Like if you want to be taking games right now, it's how close can you get to 0, and that never really felt like the case before, or not since. I mean, a little bit during discipline, but like when you look at the lineups, and I'm thinking, well, there's a really good hitter here. How much does that really matter right now with flooding? That suddenly those big hits and getting people on the bases doesn't feel quite as strong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're seeing a lot of, and when we're not seeing low scoring games, we're seeing very one sided games. We're seeing 1-13s. There's not a lot of games that are going up to 10 on both halves this season. I don't think that just doesn't feel like what we're getting.
Was it Charleston and who are they up against just a couple hours ago? Where it was like 13-11.
Oh,
there you go. So
right, like that's the thing.
That was the Kit Adams' Simba Davis.
Simba Davis, Kit Adams. I think that was the one. Kit Adams is. But I think what I'm going to be curious about to that point is I feel like there's a little bit of almost you have like either a team might have to focus on being like a small ball team like the Crabs were last year, or be the team that is high risk, high reward. And part of that is me looking at when we so Cyber did a thing where they look at all the different ways teams can improve, renovate their stadiums, and including like the stats you see, the dials each stadium has, and some of those dials turn up hard hits, so that if a hit happens, it will hit harder, or the home run percentage will go up. So you could theoretically dial up, maybe you don't get a lot of hits, but when you do, and think of like bigger buckets, there are ways where it's like, just I want to make a material plane reference, but I won't. Where it's like you will strike out half the time, the other half the time you're going to hit a triple or home run.
Mm-hmm.
Is a viable possibility, but can you coordinate that amongst a few thousand fans?
I'll say the million coin, a million vote question. There we go. We do need to move on just a little bit. So let's talk just a little bit about the teams that a lot of people thought were going to be just a little spicy this year and maybe have cooled off. Specifically with the Crabs, Firefighters, and Mills. We'll start with Ileana. Why are these teams maybe struggling just a little bit this season?
I mean, the Crabs, the answer is easy. They're cursed. And they don't have the fourth strike. That's what it comes down to. Most of the Crabs hitters are cursed. If you are cursed and you have the fourth strike, that is better than baseline level.
Yeah.
But without the fourth strike, you're not getting on base half the time.
Yeah.
What were the other teams?
I mean, let's take a moment here with the fourth strike, because I think that's a big topic of discussion specifically for the Crabs, comparing this season to last season. Losing the fourth strike in this situation, pretty unfortunate, and it really shows that maybe their lineup is not where it needs to be.
I think their lineup is one of the super interesting things about the Crabs that everyone brings up when you say Crabs good is their defense, right? And I think that the lineup worked significantly well for them. This is roughly the same lineup they had in the discipline era, with the exception of losing a handful of players as they ascended.
Yeah.
I don't think that handful of players was the critical thing that got them to the 3 championships. I think it really it comes down to the fourth strike when it's on 1 or 2 teams, as it was in season 13, is really overpoweringly strong. It's up there along with Walk in the Park of blessings, where if you get that, you are pretty much guaranteed to make the postseason. If you have just enough stars to back it up.
If I may.
Yes.
You may.
I think that the interesting thing is that last part is if you have enough stars to back it up, because there were 4 teams that had fourth strike last year, including the Charleston Shoe Thieves, who also had the same curse, and all of them missed the playoffs except the Crabs. And I think, to Ileana's point, the fourth strike, I think improved them, because that it was the Jazz Hands, the Lovers, the Shoe Thieves. And I think what's interesting is because I was curious, because I had rated the Crabs low last season, I figured they'd finish around the same as the Shoe Thieves. And what I was noticing is that so many of the Crabs games, they were kind of close and winning by 1 run. Or their pitching just barely outlasted their opponent against even good teams. And the Shoe Thieves were up against good teams and were just 1 run or 1 inning away, but could never quite close the deal. And I think, to Ileana's point, is that those stars we don't necessarily always see in the defense, the background, really, when you have the flinch and the fourth strike and those stars, it's just enough to just and without them,
it just goes very subtly into that zone of hey, here's your championship team for the season, right? They're 3 millimeters into that bubble. Yeah. With all of those things combined, and without the fourth strike, they're way out of contention. That's what it comes down to. What's really interesting to me is the note that the Shoe Thieves, have the curse, have the fourth strike, also did poorly, and I think that a lot of that comes down to a lot of inconsistency in their lineup and their pitching rotation. that they had last season. Now they're even more consistent now that Tillman has, I don't know, yeeted himself off into the hall.
You see, I'm curious about that, though, because didn't the hall monitor have a no Tillman sign?
I think what we're learning very quickly this season is that the hall monitor doesn't actually have a whole lot of control.
Ooh.
We'll find out. I mean, apparently
We'll find out very soon, I'm sure. But that's my theory right now is they're a bit more on the chaos side of things than the order.
Fair enough. Drewo, your thoughts on the Crabs and the fourth strike?
I mean, it's easy when you look at the Crabs in terms of stats to devalue their team, but I think what we're seeing this season might be, like you said, the curse is awful, but I think this might be a temporary setback for the Crabs. We've seen the Crabs go from better to best, and like they don't seem like they're any worse than they were. Maybe the league has grown a little without them, but I think a season of goodwills from the Crabs, maybe not this season, but a season with goodwills at the start from the Crabs, a swap here and a fuse there, and you might see the Crabs that are really contending again. I mean, the difference between this season and last season, I can't put just the fourth strike. It's night and day. There has to have been one of them where they were over or underperforming as well, and I'm choosing to believe that right now it's underperforming because I had them fourth. But
data, but I had them fourth, so
like really they should be higher than they are.
I have to point out that I had them 13th.
Yeah,
so they're even underperforming that.
That's harsh because like they're the only team that don't deserve to be anywhere near the top. I look at my list of top 12, and it's 3 of the really top teams and 4 of the second place teams. And I'm like sitting really, really good until you look at Crab's fourth and Garage's 11th. And you're like,
oopsie!
Yeah.
Ooh.
Got it nail on the head with the voice talkers, the Tackers, the Tigers, and then Crabs. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do feel bad.
We all have those every time too.
Oh yeah, I do feel bad that the Flowers are struggling just a little bit. A lot of that has to do with players having been missing the entire season. Gloria Bugsnax out of the lineup, that hurt. So I think I ranked the Flowers 5th. Joey and I were right up there. A lot of people actually up there thinking the Flowers would be up in the playoff contention just from the get-go. So moving on to other teams that are kind of in that, as lucky as you put it, paying for past performance kind of title. The Firefighters and the Mills. Lucky, what are you thinking about with those?
So yeah, the phrase I used was as BNN rankers, our power rankers, we're kind of paying for past performance. I think Ileana does a really good job of kind of getting past that a lot of times. Like we see some what we think are spicy takes that seem to pan out. So the idea of paying for past performance, in other sports leagues where they have contracts, a lot of times you will have your rookie players or second or third year players who are making just a little bit of money. And they're way outperforming what you're paying them. Like they're amazing, and you're paying them like league minimum. And then 5-6 years in, you start paying them more than anyone else in the league, and they're okay.
They're still doing the same.
I mean, or they're just not as good, or the league is caught up. And I feel like with the Mills and the Firefighters especially, because I think we were all really underselling how good the Firefighters were the last couple of years. And so this year it's like, all right, Firefighters are putting them in the top 8. They're 7th on our rankings, and now they're the middle of the league.
I think I picked them 8th, so yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think part of it is to what we've talked about before, and I think what could even lead to a discussion later is there's less of that stratification. The Wild Low got a bunch of buffs. The Lift got a lot better. The Worms are not terrible.
To everyone's dismay.
And so, well, not even to dismay, but suddenly a lot of that just kind of easy wins, or a lot of that where you're like, okay, we can win 2/3 of the games we play against these teams, is now it's going to be closer to 5 out of 9 wins or 4 out of 9 wins, and so now everyone's a little closer to 500. And I think the Firefighters, like they went leaps and bounds from season 12 to 13, and from season 13 to 14, got a little bit better. Whereas the rest of the league went whoa and kind of caught up.
Ileana, Lucky complimented you there on your ability to perceive, as one might say. So
yeah, but also I look at this and I see I put the Mills at 3 and the Firefighters at 4. So,
well, fair enough.
I think there's absolutely, I before we did this call, I copied my power rankings into here, put in the number of wins everyone had at the end of day 56, sorted, and it's like, this isn't bad. Like, I could have done a lot worse.
Sure.
And especially if I sort of reverted toward the mean of what a lot of other people thought, reverted toward the mean of what actually ended up on baseball.news. I would have been a lot more wrong. But I think that it's really interesting to look at the lineup and the defense that the Firefighters and the Mills have and watch them underperform so much this season. I don't know what it is. I could not tell you what is going on with either of those two squads at this moment. The Mills usually are terrible much later in the season. So it's very confounding.
You've commented a couple times that the Mills have this point, either Thursday, Friday, or sometime in there, where they just shut down. Either they forgot to pay one of their utilities or their rent or something.
Yeah. They didn't pay their rent, and now the ballpark's closed. It's very confounding, and I think again the actual real factor here is likely schedule, and ending up seemingly every season, even though it's randomly selected, ending up against stronger teams later in the season and missing the postseason by 1 or 2 games. This may be a just really unlucky early and mid-season for the Mills.
And that is,
and maybe it'll be an unlucky late season too.
It always could be. It always could be. Drebo, where are you at when it comes to these teams that might be paying for these past performances?
Well, it's definitely easier to see a Mills come back late this season than it is Firefighters. I mean, not to sound harsh on the Tokyo Lift, they've come a long way, but their rotation is still real weak, and yet they are outperforming the Firefighters pretty much every turn. And I mean, not even bringing in teams like the Jazz Hands and the Georges, who are really, really struggling in terms of players right now. And the Firefighters are still losing games to them. I can see a Mills come back maybe with look. I don't know what their schedule looks like for the later half of the season, but nobody in Mile High other than the Lovers is really striking me as particularly strong. The Pies are doing very well, but there's definitely room for the Mills to come back into maybe at least third in there. But I mean, the Firefighters just really don't seem to be picking anything up, and I'm not even really sure what it is. Maybe it's I'm not sure how much attention we're paying to ballparks yet, but maybe that's a big thing for them. I know that there's stats low and high on everybody, and maybe that's really hitting them hard. But I don't see anything that really should have made them worse.
Sure.
Yeah, and yet here they are.
Yeah. And you bring up a very good point. What is the Tokyo Lift on? Did anyone see the Tokyo Lift doing what? Oh, Ileana did. Oh, there we go. All right. We'll open up with Ileana then on this specific subject.
I did not expect them to do this well, but I did expect them to do well. Right. Much better than they had in the past. I put them 16th.
Okay. Okay.
And they're very much overperforming that. I did not expect Goodwin Morin to be having as good of a season as she is. Goodwin's been really strong for the team, but their pitching staff has been significantly overperforming. We're talking about, they've got a handful of pitchers that are at like sub-3 ERAs, or at least when I looked at them yesterday, they were sub-3 ERAs. So sample sizes and all, but like if you're at a 2 dot something ERA, you're really having a killer season, regardless of what your stars say. I think the lift has some, I think we talked about this. I either talked about it here or I talked about it on postseason cast I did with Joey. I don't remember, but the stars do not necessarily indicate sort of the stronger statistics, the stronger underlying attributes of these players. And I think with the lift pitching rotation, you're looking at a lot of teams who overperform the stars.
I believe that's a conversation we had last week, actually, where we were talking about there is this strange, I'm not going to say strange, but there's this assumption that if someone has a lot of very high stars, they're going to perform really well, where it's really just, okay, this is an indication that they have the opportunity to perform well.
My favorite example of this is the Garage's Betsy Trombone. Yes. Right? Like, Betsy had a phenomenal ERA for being a 1-star pitcher. And that's what led the Garages to infuse them, right? Now they're, I think, one of the best pitchers the Garages have ever had, and they had Jalen Hot Dog Fingers for however many seasons she wasn't dead. So, yeah, I think there's certain aspects to these pitchers where they are much more than they seem to us when we go look at them on Blaseball.com.
Sure.
For the lift especially, and it's the same we've seen with the Worms, I think, as well. Hitting party time so early has really done them some favors as well. Like, the lift got 25 party times or something. I think the Worms got a few more. It's crazy to say, but I think it was something around the 20s that the lift got, and that is 20 maybe stars that they previously didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of performance. And we've seen it in the Worms as well. The Worms went from, what were they at this point last season, 9 wins all the way to here. And as a Worms captain, I'll tell you, we tried not to get better. We punted pitching machine. We plundered our own player to waste a will. You know, we weren't looking for anything out of the season. But party time is really hit. Like, I mean, I really, as someone who's just come from the Worms in that season, I can't suggest anymore that teams try as hard as they can to lose if they're not doing well. Like, if you're not gonna hit the postseason, you want to lose as quickly as possible. It's right at the top of the round now, and that is beginning to feel more and more like that.
Yeah,
and you brought up the lift and party time, and they finally had a reversion to the mean last season. The lift have been getting really unlucky with, whether someone is partying or not is a random roll every single play. It's a really small roll. And the lift got really unlucky with how long they were in party time in seasons 11 and 12. Season 13 finally hit it. I think that's a really important thing to call out there with how much they've improved.
And to the point, like, if you look at what team in the Wild, when I look at this, which team in the Wild has the second most defensive stars? It's the Lift.
No.
Really? Wait,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
That's that thing about party time.
Yeah. Like, I mean, the thing is
because party time is a straight increase across all 4, every single attribute you have.
And remember, the Wild low had, their pitching defense for so many seasons was just like, don't worry about it. We're just going to hit it out of the park.
Yeah.
Not only that, but the Lift also have a rotation that is ridiculously consistent. Like, you don't have tons of superstars, but you don't have your half-star, 1-star pitchers. You have a lot of people clustered around that, and then all partying with a solid defense. And it seems to be bearing fruit this season, so.
I would love to have, and maybe this is something that we can, initiate as a discussion across the Blaseball community, but I would love to see more stat visibility for the defensive stats, because if you just look on the team page, you see the lineup stars for batting and you see the pitcher stars for pitching, and that's it unless you actually click on the players. I would.
That's why when I go do these power rankings, like I go look at cyber tools to go look at the average defense stars, right? If that would be nice if I could see, hey, what's the average defense look like for this team? Just bringing them on. What's the average base running look like? But now we're getting into feature request territory.
We should probably err away from that for the time being.
But I think that on the defense aspect, again, this is not something that we end up talking about a lot at Cyber, is we don't know what the individual defense stats actually do. Because when we don't have the data, we don't have any theories, they're just kind of there, and we know defense is really strong this season, just based on anecdotal evidence. But if you look at the individual attributes that we know are tied to the defense rating, we couldn't tell you what they do, because every time a fielding play happens, it just says some random person in the outfielder name standing somewhere in the field, presumably. And it's really difficult to draw those conclusions other than defense good. Defense goo. So yeah, it's really interesting when you look at, apart from pitching, which is fairly well understood, defense is the next strongest thing that you need to be looking at as a fan when you're thinking about what you can do to improve your team. We couldn't tell you a damn thing about it.
So this is actually a conversation that I've had with a couple folks. But when King was traded over to the Magic and in season 13 really struggled a little bit, I noticed that there were a lot of issues with on bases with him versus when he was with the Flowers, specifically Glade Moon and Jacob Haynes. Handling fielding for him was a devastating combination, because when he was with the Flowers, King was a good pitcher, let some stuff through, but almost all the time, ground outs, fly outs. And especially Glade Moon and Jacob Haynes were there to make those grabs. And then the Magic kind of struggled with that, but then boost into season 14, we already had that conversation. So that's actually a really good point to make, and I would love to know something about those stats.
I would too.
Anything.
We keep doing this thing where sometimes we'll ask a dev just straight up, hey, what does this thing
What's this do?
And every single time we do that and we get an answer, it's not a defense stat.
Fair enough. Really quick, we are at the top of the hour, so before we close up shop here, because we're all about hubris on this broadcast, I love hubris, let's go around the horn here just once and get predictions for what the finals might look like. And we're going to start out, because he's lost in thought, with Drewo. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
The finals.
The finals.
And I'm going to regret this, but it has to be Moist Talkers Tacos.
Really?
They topped my rankings. They both look almost indomitable in their divisions. They're both really topping. I mean, the Sunbeams have had a real comeback. Credit to them. But attackers look really strong in Wildlow. Moist Talkers look really strong in Wildlow. They've just hit 40 wins. They're first team together by quite a way. Could it be the Tigers? Absolutely. I wouldn't rule the Tigers out for a second, but I'd like to suggest that the Tigers have the team this year. Valentine Games is stepping up. You've got a relatively good rotation in Weir and Elliott, and they're not going anywhere. They're the only two people. And they've got a small setup. Losing or gaining someone or something big happening won't affect things too much. They've got a small and tight setup, and I think they're likely to hit postseason, and I think from that they'll do pretty well. They're outperforming against the big teams. And I can't rule out the Moist Talkers in mild. I love the Lovers, but I can't. I've got to expect some of this is scheduling so far. Their lineup just I don't know how they get 36 wins. Congratulations to them,
All right, Lucky, go ahead.
All right, I'm going to do some serious hubris. So first, Moist Talkers on the mild side, and I'm going to say it's because this is the first season in the expansion era that I did not rank them as number one in my own power rankings. First time, had them one every season, except this one. So of course they're going to go there. Opposite them, Mexico City Wild Wings.
Whoa!
I don't know if that's the correct, but I feel it's the hubristic one. And the Wild Wings are the kind of like they do well against other Wild League teams, and I think and they've pulled it. They've done it before, where they just come out of nowhere, and I think they can do it again. So that's what I got. Okay.
It is about time for another Wild season for the Wild Wings. I kind of wish I went second, because then I could have the hot take about the Wild Wings.
Are you on that too? Are you on that too, Ileana?
Roughly, yeah. I mean, you look at this and I think about the WLCS. I think Hades is going to be one of the teams in the League Championship Series. And so it's an open question about whether it's the Tacos or the Wings. I honestly don't know. The Tacos are really strong, but fragile. I think that the Wings have Bert Gonzalez and Cel Barajas and a few other really good players that can get them, with some luck, to the Internet Series. If I'm going to make a hubristic prediction, I think it's going to be the Tigers. I think it's going to be the Tigers winning the WLCS in at least 4 games. On the mild side, it's going to depend a lot on the luck of the draw for the Talkers. If it's a game with flooding, or if it's a game with Polka Dot Patterson, they win, right? Any other time, it's a coin flip, I think. And you can hope all you want for the weather in the regular season and predict the future, and it'll pan out for you when the story says the flooding is getting worse. But we'll see how that goes in the postseason. I think the Magic are going to win the MLCS. I think they're going to do it in a 5th game with a really unlucky weather draw for the Moist Talkers. And so I guess that puts me at a Tigers Magic Internet Series, where I think the Tigers take it in 5 games.
Okay.
And there's my very, very specific, this will almost certainly be wrong, because I said so many details.
A little bit of hubris goes a long way.
It really does.
I'm going to double down on my number 2 call on the Magic and say the Magic win the Mild League. They take the Mild League. I don't think the Moist Talkers are going to be able to hold up against their pitching. I also feel like either call the Tacos or the Tigers is a good call for Wild. With players coming back, there might be some life in the flowers, but can they make up the deficit that they've fallen to behind the Tigers, behind the Tacos? I don't think that's going to happen. So I think for the finals, if I have to make a call for the finals, I'm going to say Tacos and Yellowstone Magic. Yellowstone Magic take it in 4.
A Magic win.
I'll say the Magic take it in 4.
Yeah. Real ranking Magic number 2.
Yeah, I've got to go
in the BNN Power Rankings energy there.
Yeah, I may have spent all my Magic already on that one.
And I guess I've got to go very, very against that. I'm going to have to say Moist Talkers Magic easy 3-0. I think that is a clean sweep, and I'll be wrong if I'm wrong. I've got a lot of respect for the Moist Talkers right now, not just because York Silk is my favorite player in Blaseball.
That's fair.
I'm hoping to cast some Yellowstone Magic postseason. We'll see. Anywho, we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up here. First off, our guests, Ileana, go ahead and tell us where we can find more about you.
So I'm with the Society for Internet Blaseball Research. We do all the all the archivism and numerical analysis. We do Blaseball reference. We have Reblaze, a bunch of other tools, and we are very, very much trying to figure out what the hell is going on with levels. And so if you want to join our research efforts of looking at lots and lots of historical data and being very confused, you can join us on our Discord server, which you can get to via discord.sibr.dev. If you're not on the research side and you just want to know when the hell we figured anything out, you can follow the organization on Twitter at SIBRofficial. And you can follow me where I sometimes tweet things at Ileana Quorum.
There we go. Our second guest for tonight, GOO. Where can people find you? Where can people find out more about you? And how loamy are the worms?
Well, you can find me at GOO on Twitter as well. That's all I'll ever use from now on. It's a full rebrand. I'm hitting 2020 hard with the GOO. 2021 now, I suppose. But for the worms, I encourage you to come visit on the main Discord. And when it opens on Sunday for the short break, the side chord, the wormhole, which we're working very hard on.
Nice.
So please do come and visit. It's very nice. We've got a lovely set of, I think, very new Blaseball players. So it's been lovely to be there. It's been nice to be on a spreadsheet as the top earner. You know, that's never going to get old. That's the political swear I have right now is truly immense. But yeah, you can find us there. Come along. Otherwise, I suppose you can follow my exploits on Twitter. Blaseball is relatively is a shh on the Twitter kind of thing. That's I don't want to bore the regular followers who follow me for my other interesting things such as PhD work. So whether or not that's more interesting. But yeah, been lovely been lovely being on.
Thank you. All right, regular host along with myself, Luckey. Luckey, where can people find out more about you and everything that you have going on?
All right, you can find me on Twitter at Haskins_Luckey. I also tweet from the Blaseball Prospectus account on Twitter on weekday mornings, where Ace Analyst takes over the rest of the time. You can also find me in the BNN Discord and occasionally writing or editing things for BNN and Blaseball.news.
There we go. If you're still around, if you could drop links to the SIBR Discord and the BNN Discord, I would really appreciate it. Just make sure to get those links out to chat. Of course, we record this show live every Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern, whether that's EST or EDT, here at glamesh.tv/Dan. In addition, you can follow myself, hi, I'm Dan, on Twitter, twitter.com/Leto, Leto. With that being said, though, we all hope that you enjoyed the broadcast, this second episode of the BNN Midseason Power Rankings Review, Episode 2, Magic Goo. I love how that sounds. That's delightful right there.
We have to find a good rhyme for next week.
We gotta keep this up. We gotta just keep doing that. This episode is also going to be available on the Blaseball News. I forgot my words there for a second. The Blaseball News Network YouTube that you can go and find. Make sure you join the Discords. Make sure you become a part of what we have going on. If you want to participate in the journalism for Blaseball, feel free to join the BNN Discord and take the roles that you would like to participate in. It is free, and we welcome all comers. With that being said, Ileana, GOO, and Luckey, thank you so much. For all of us, have a wonderful night, everyone, and we will see you next week for more hubris.